Gary Lyon and Tim Watson were on SEN Radio the other day, and they were doing their breakout list for the 2025 season. That is the younger players who can kind of take their games to the next level. So I thought I'd jump on board and do the same thing. Now, first thing is to go over some of the exclusion of players. So I don't want to do it like too obvious. I mean, some of the players on the list are going to be a little bit obvious, of course, but say someone like an Ed Richards or a Jason Horne-Francis, I've kind of left them out intentionally. I know they kind of have other levels to go to, particularly Ed Richards. There's still definitely some growth there, but I've gone for the more, I suppose, like lower end of that. And then they've got like a bigger area to grow and become like a proper sort of part of their team or, star of the competition as well. So the first one, we'll get into it straight away. The first one that I've gone with here is Judd McVie from the Melbourne Demons. He played 23 games in 2024, really cemented himself into that running halfback distributor role. But I think there's a lot of scope with this guy. When I watch him play from halfback, I get real massive Harry Sheezel vibes, just how composed, controlled, and just at ease with himself when he has the ball in his hands. I think he attacks it really hard. He shows that physical edge to his game, and he has an unbelievable sort of movement and polish to him that I think is really difficult to teach players. He has a lot of nice little athletic traits. I mean, he already sits at about 185 centimeters, so he's not a small player. And that's where it's going to go into this idea that I have that he can move into the midfield. He did it a little bit later on in last season. Not to great effect. I think he did struggle a little bit with the pressure that he was under when he was at stoppages and sort of getting the ball in those tight spaces. So he's obviously more used to playing at halfback, but there is a hell of a lot of growth with this guy. And I do think he could be anything. There's also the idea of Melbourne being in this transitional phase, right? I've talked about this in a few different videos. Petrarca, Oliver, where are they going to play? Is Oliver going to get back to the player that he was? Viney's going to have to be moved on at some point as well. So there are opportunities in the midfield. Trent Rivers has gone in there. I'd love to see a midfield, in the next sort of 5 years at Melbourne. You've got McVie, you've got guys like Langford, Lindsay, Rivers, Windsor in there as well. So there's so much to like about this future of Melbourne. And the fact that Judd McVie, like they took him as he's a rookie player, a rookie elevation back a few years ago, like just an absolute gem to be able to get. Like I said, I think his main traits are sort of calmness on the ball, but he's also got that dare in his game to be able to progress the ball up the field. If he sees a bit of open space in front of him, he's not afraid to use his athleticism and get into that pocket and sort of take meters. So love what he's become. Now, the next one I'm going to go to is a young Western Bulldogs player. There's a couple here that I've got that probably seem a little bit like low-hanging fruit. Like Riley Sanders just seems like he's destined to become a 200 gamer. He's got that about him where he can sort of go into the run through the midfield. He's got that endurance to him. He's got clean hands. He's really good at stoppages. But I think there is again, and I'm looking for little angles where these players, it's not just natural progression that I'm talking about. There is a little bit of an opportunity opening up for them. And I think with, Treloar's over 30, Libba's over 30, Bont's around that age. We know they like to play, or Bevo likes to play Bontempelli in the forward half of the ground as well. He can be really dangerous from a scoreboard impact point of view. You've got Ed Richards coming into that midfield. So do you want to just start to kind of ease out the likes of Treloar, who I think Riley Sanders is sort of a natural replacement for? I just think he does everything so well. And I think the big question about Riley Sanders is he sort of that powerful Jason Horne-Francis type? I get vibes of Jason Horne-Francis with the build. He's sort of got that shorter legs, longer torso type build, and he does sort of get up a real head of steam, and he has power to him when he runs out of stoppage. I think that's going to be a big part of it. But he also has that accumulation factor that I don't think Jason Horne-Francis necessarily naturally has. So can he be a sort of hybrid between the two? I don't think he's as explosive as Horne-Francis, but then he can sort of be that kind of, Nick Dacos, Caleb Sarong type engine mid. I just think he has a lot of things, a lot of boxes that he ticks. He's a bigger body in there, which always helps. He's not sort of 180. He's more like a 185 type, and he's physical. And clubs absolutely love that. Do I think he goes on to be like the best player in the competition? Probably not. There's probably a little bit of a ceiling there. But I think this year just seems really obvious that he is going to take his game to a new level. And at the very minimum, he's going to just lock himself into that Western Bulldogs midfield. Next up, we hit the key position players, and I've got to go with Riley Thilthorpe here from the Adelaide Crows. only the 7 games in 2024. And it feels like I'm cheating a little bit because the numbers that he put up in those games was absolutely massive. We're talking 2.1 goals per game and 1.6 contested marks. That's sort of top 10, top 20 type stuffs for the position. So he was absolutely massive in the games that he played. And he just looks a beast, doesn't he? And it feels like every time we see another video of Thilthorpe, he just looks bigger, stronger, more physical. He looks like the type of forward that can sort of wrestle with multiple defenders, and he's just going to be a nightmare matchup. I've seen a few of the preseason videos coming out of Adelaide, and he looks even better this season. I think an underrated element to his game is his field kicking. When he does pick up the ball, in the pockets and he gets a little bit of space, he can hit targets inside forward 50. And one thing that I think is a really underrated part of being a forward is he just never seems to get intercepted on. So when he's in a contest and the intercept defender, the defending team gets that extra across, he's always able to at least make a contest. And then his follow-up stuff at ground level is pretty good as well. And he can either release through hand or by foot, like I said. So big year incoming for Riley Thilthorpe. I'm actually just going to put it out there. I think Riley Thilthorpe will be the best key position forward by 5 years' time. He'll be the best forward in the competition with the skill set that he has. Sticking with that key position theme, and I've gone with Harry Edwards from the West Coast Eagles. Now, this would be somewhat of a 6th-year breakout here, and West Coast fans might already argue that he's kind of broken out, and he probably has from a performance level, but hasn't really ever managed to play, I think, 15 games over the 4 to 5 years that he's been in the system. But I think this could be the year that he actually breaks out if he can get his body right. In 2024, he had 3 intercept marks per game. That is right up the top end. So he's a real diffusion weapon. And when I watch this guy in the flesh, that's the thing that I notice. He's not just that big-bodied fullback. We're talking about a guy here that's 204 centimeters. So he is a giant. He's not just that lockdown defender that's spoiling all the time. He's able to imprint himself onto the game and really take those forwards on and mark the ball in the air. I would liken him to somewhat of a Jacob Wiedering type. He has a similar build and a similar movement to him. Someone that can move like this at that height is such a weapon. And again, I think he will be, in the next couple of years at least, he'll be fighting out for an All-Australian spot with the likes of Sam Taylor, with Jacob Wiedering, because that's the sort of caliber that he looks to be. On top of that, you've got a lot of space for him to operate now. Hearn's retired in the last couple of years. Barras moves to Hawthorn, which means there's even more of an intercepting role there to take. He's still got McGovern with him, obviously, just to work alongside, that'll have some experience back there. But having this kind of player at fullback is just going to, if he can play a full season of 22, 23 games, West Coast are going to be so much better off in the short term. The next one is a fan favourite of mine. It's Hugo Garcia from St Kilda. Just got the 9 games in. He was another one that was sort of sub-affected throughout this season. One of the things I like here is correlating his time on ground statistics with the numbers that he put up. If you sort of, put that out exponentially, Hugo Garcia is playing as a real top liner at the moment. Sort of thrives in a mixture of a centre bounce midfielder and a high half forward. I think he's that perfect player. He has beautiful movement. And when you watch him amongst other AFL players, he does just have that just a little bit of extra zip, the fast feet at stoppages that are so important. And he's a physical beast, this guy. He absolutely loves to tackle and looks smaller framed, which probably makes you think that he's a little bit more of an outside player, but he's so physical. He loves the contact. He looks for it. And I think he's low-key strong. He's around the 185 centimetre mark, so certainly has the size to be able to play inside. And we talk about midfields kind of changing and evolving. The fact that Matthias Philippou will be missing probably the early parts of the season, it really gives an opportunity for Hugo Garcia to be in there. McRae's come in, but then you've got Crouch who's gone out, and I think they're going to want to get the mix right. Jack Steele is probably still going to be a mainstay in there. Hugo Garcia can be that weapon that really gets on the ball, uses his feet to get out of stoppage, and gives St Kilda a weapon because they were so poor in that area in 2024. So this one, if there's anyone on this list that I'm sure is going to break out, it's Hugo Garcia. If it's not 2025, it'll be next year. And the last one on my list is Jace Burgoyne from the Port Adelaide Football Club. Everybody remembers back to that semi-final that they played against Hawthorn, where he pretty much won the game for them, filling the shoes of Dan Houston. I think he's going to go ahead of guys like Farrell. There's another one back there that I can't remember. but he is going to take his game to a new level. He moves so beautifully across the field. I get vibes of Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller, the way that he uses the ball and has such a physical, hard edge to him as well. So to be able to play on those dangerous small forwards is really important, but I think they can take the handbrake off him a little bit this season and just give him a little bit more ball. You know, he's around that 18 disposal mark. But what I love about him, and this is similar to Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller, 2.4 inside 50s compared to 1.9 rebound 50s. So he's getting the ball in the more offensive parts of the ground, and having a player like this receive the ball in that front half is really, really important. So you just want to get a little bit more ball in his hand. If that 18 goes up to sort of, low 20s, mid 20s, 25, around that level, you're going to have a really, really dangerous player. And given that Dan Houston has left this team such a vacant hole for a good ball user off halfback, and I think this guy seems to have the attitude and seems to have the mongrel in him to be able to do it. So that is a wrap for my breakout contenders, at least part one. I'll probably do a few more of these videos to talk about other players that are in the mix for that. I've got a long list in front of me and I kind of just got it down. I tried to put a mix of sort of mids and small forwards and running defenders and key position players to try and get a bit of a better look at everything. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments and if I've missed anyone really, really important. And I'll see you guys next time.